3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back for a Runnin Thought podcast number 2. I'm your host, Clint, coming to you all the way from KL, Hawaii. It's taken me a while to record a second podcast. I'm going to have to be better about getting these pushed out in the future. I actually did record several, or started to record several second episodes, but either didn't like them or didn't get enough said before I shut it down and fell asleep. So here I am. I think this is like the third or fourth try at getting a full-length episode, so I'm gonna have to get a little bit better about this. But yeah, so here I am, and a lot's happened since last time. I had the good fortune to run the 22nd annual Big Island International Marathon in Hilo, Hawaii, and that was excellent. I'm always pleasantly reminded of how beautiful the area that I live in is, and just, Hawaii altogether. You don't ever want for beautiful scenery if you live here. It doesn't matter. It could be sunny day, rainy day, whatever. There's always a little bit of niceness that you can find all around. And just because it's raining somewhere doesn't mean it's going to be raining everywhere. And just because it's sunny in some places doesn't mean that the whole island's going to be sunny. So there's a little something for everyone here. I think Hawaii Island has every single biome except for Arctic, and we do get snow up at the summit of Mauna Kea. So we almost have that Arctic tundra. But anyways, so yeah, just go ahead and get this out of the way. I'm not a doctor. I think you remember that from last time. So any kind of advice that even resembles medical advice that I'm going to give you or mention, don't necessarily just go out and follow it. Please speak to your healthcare provider or another healthcare professional before starting any kind of training regimen or changing your diet or taking a supplement or whatever. Yeah. So the marathon was super nice. So there's different ways that I get to an event. I'll call it an event because I'm not trying to wax philosophical. I'm sure you're not interested, but I don't like to call it a race because it seems like I'm never really racing anybody during these things. Sure, I like to go out and I like to give 100 and however many percent, give it my all, do the best that I can, but I don't ever feel like I'm really like racing anybody, you know what I mean? Because there's always, at least for me, there's always somebody that is way faster than me by a long shot. So I don't ever feel like I'm going out to race. But the event, so I'll probably call it race, but just know I don't mean like I'm out there to like mow people down and leave them in my wake. But anyway, so this event was super nice. There's a couple of different ways that I get to an event. When I first started running like organized events like 5K or 10K or whatever, even marathons, I was always super nervous, like super anxious. So it was the whole deal of get all your attire ready that you're going to put on the night before, have it laid out. And I'm talking about like everything, like bib already fastened to your shirt, shorts, socks. You got your body glide laid out, your goo gels all lined up, arranged, and shoes are by the door with the socks inside, and you're just like 100%. Garmin is on the charger, like everything so well thought out, and your anxiety and anticipation is up so much. For me, it was especially on the first events that I did, organized events. And so you make sure to leave home really early so you can beat traffic and get there, like an hour before they even start putting people into the corral. And then, that's good. You get there on time and you're ready to go. So nothing wrong with that. There's a different approach that I take now, and I'm not bragging, and I don't, I'm not trying to come across as arrogant, but so what's happened over time is that I've gotten more accustomed to, running long distances. So even with like marathon or an ultra marathon event, it's kind of like another day for me when I get up. And I don't know if it's a age thing as well, because I'm almost 40 years old. It's creeping up on me, but I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But more and more, I find myself basically waking up on the morning of, in plenty of time. It's not like I'm running late, but I basically wake up and just grab my stuff and, feed the dogs, do whatever I need to do, maybe grab a quick breakfast sandwich, make sure I go to the bathroom a couple of times, because I don't know if you are familiar, but it's never a good idea to have to go like when you get to the event, because there always seems to be a lot of people that have nervous stuff going on with their bodies, and they need to use the bathroom. Like, so there'll be lines outside of the porta johns. That's kind of gross. Sorry that I took it there, but I mean, it is a fact that does happen. So anyways, I find more and more I'm just getting up and going with the flow, and I don't really care what I'm wearing to the thing, or really what I look like, or anything like that. Thinking back on it, maybe the reason why I used to get hung up on that is because of the great unknown. People get nervous when things seem out of their control, and we try to control as much as we possibly can, especially in the face, when we're facing those times that we don't know a lot, and we don't feel like we have a good, not a good grasp, but a far reach. Like we can't control a lot of things. We'll try to control, the small things that we can get our hands on. So maybe that's why there's a thing where people are super excited and laying out their gear and posting pictures on social media and stuff before an event. And it could be, like I was saying before, it could just be I was younger then, not by much, but definitely a little bit younger. So anyways, I talked so long on that, I kind of forgot what my point was, but hopefully this will be it. I got up that morning and it was go with the flow. It wasn't like the old days where I was all prepared and had everything ready. It was just, the planets aligned, and thankfully my Garmin was charged, and I was able to find socks that matched. So that was great. And I was able to get everything that I needed to get done at home, feed the dogs and all that, and get in my truck and drive and be there. I think I showed up probably about 5 or 10 minutes before the gun. So right on time, I guess. I don't really know why I would need to be there any earlier. I see sometimes, I'm not making fun of you, by the way, so please don't take offense, but I see sometimes, before a few people will be running already, like they'll already be running, or they'll be stretching or doing some kind of very exaggerated walk, like high stepping or kind of walking like a duck, but I don't really do a lot of that. I did kind of like stand in place and sort of stretch a little bit, like as we were waiting to start, but I think that's just nervous energy trying to escape. Because I know I said that I wasn't super nervous, but when you're on the line, there's a little bit of nerves for sure, because you got a big day ahead of you. But anyway, so we started this marathon. I'm going to take you through the marathon. So if you don't want to hear about the course, then I guess go ahead and fast forward through this, because I'm about to tell you all about it. We started in Hilo Bay, and it was still dark, as most marathons are when they start. There were, I want to say there were ballpark like between 60 and 70 people that ran the marathon event. And then there were more there, families and people that were running other distances there to kind of cheer us on. So not a whole lot of people. Like if you're from a big city or you've run a marathon in a big city, there's way more people. Like you have to be in corrals by the letter of your last name or whatever. So we just kind of lined up and we listened to the announcer kind of talk. I don't remember what he was saying, but he was like really amped and trying to like get everybody pumped up, and he was funny, so that was cool. And then all of a sudden, as things tend to do around here, the event or the race, however you want to call it, started, and we were off. And so the first part, so we start off and then we run north, basically. We're headed up north, so we kind of run from Hilo Bay, which it's dark at that point, so you can't see much, but it was a nice morning, and you could hear kind of the wind blowing through the palm trees, kind of that rustling. So that was nice. It's kind of a soothing sound to start a race off too. And for the most part, people were quiet. Not a lot of chatty Cathys or talky Tommies, I guess, to begin with. It's funny the things that you overhear people saying. I can't remember. I heard somebody say something, and it was funny, but for the life of me, I can't remember it now when I need it most. They would say, yeah, so it wasn't like that funny, but it was funny at the time. Some people were joking about, I just had it. No, I can't remember. But it was something it was like dad humor, I'm a dad, so I can say that. It was kind of like dad humor, like, run a marathon, they said. It'll be fun, they said. It wasn't that exactly, but somewhere along those lines. But back to the story. So we took off, and we're headed up north, and you can hear the waves. I mean, as you're running from the start, you're probably about, I don't know, like maybe 40, 30 or 40 yards from the ocean. I'm just guessing, but about that distance. And then as you go up the coast a little bit, you're right there. Like the waves are literally crashing. Like you're running right along the side of the ocean, and there's a kind of like a barrier, and the waves are crashing into the side. So that was kind of exciting. I always like the smell of the ocean. I mean, maybe it was my days in the Navy and like all the association I have with that, even though to be fair, I wasn't underway that much, but I did spend a few years on another island, Okinawa, in the middle of I guess they would call, or we called it the East China Sea, but I think that's like up for debate, but I don't want to get into political talks. But so point being, positive association for me with that sea smell. Some people might have a different opinion on that, but yeah, so you got the nice smell going, you got the nice little ocean mist coming up, and nice clear night, or nice clear morning, I guess. And about that time, the sun was coming up a little bit, so it was getting to be daylight. And then you kind of head uphill for basically the first half, I believe. First half of this thing, you're mostly going uphill. Now, it's not a great big hill, but it's a pretty big hill. It's big enough. It's uphill. It's probably better that it starts out that way. But so even though you're going uphill, this is like my opinion, this is the most beautiful part of the whole course, is where you start off at, because you go up a hill. You're right along the did I mention that you go up a hill? Yeah, because you go up a hill. But anyways, so you're going up, and you go across a bridge, like right after you get past Hilo town, like the actual town, downtown. You pass that, and there's a bridge that kind of goes over the Wailuku River, and you keep going up. At this point, you're kind of like on the side of the highway, and it's not a lot of fun at that particular point, but eventually you get a turn, and you turn down into a neighborhood, and that comes out on a popular surfing beach just north of Hilo. And the sun's up at this point, and you're watching these. That day, there were pretty decent waves coming in, and the surfers were all out and catching waves. So that was cool, because you're actually seeing other people doing their thing. You're doing your thing. Those other people are doing their thing. Their Sunday morning ritual, as it were. And that's cool to see that happening. The sun's coming up. Of course, it's beautiful. It's Hawaii. There's no morning here to me that's not beautiful. If you don't see the beauty, then you're not looking hard enough. That's just my opinion. But I mean, like, even when it rains, it's to me, I like it. But I've always liked the rain anyway. It may be some of my genes. I think I've got a lot of English genes, so some Anglo-Saxon in me loves foggy old England, I guess. But anyways, back to the point. So beautiful, and you just continue up this. This is off the main highway now. I think I mentioned that. Turned on into a neighborhood, and then you're kind of like on a scenic drive, sorta. So we're all just running down through a rainforest type area, and you can look over to your left or right, crossing over these bridges, and there'll be waterfalls, humongous palm trees, just a whole forest full of nothing but palm trees. And then, there's peppered with some residential. Some of it is smaller houses grouped close together. Some of it, you can tell, or at least from the looks of the gate, it's a pretty big property, a pretty nice big house somewhere set back in there. But anyways, this continues on through the these little residential areas, and like kind of like really backcountry type road, but it's like really near the coast, so it's not super remote, but it's definitely, you definitely feel like you're not in the city. You're kind of like out traversing the jungle, and there's plenty of times where you can look off to the right and you can see the ocean. You can see humongous waves crashing against the rocks, and the ocean here is deep blue. It's like that navy blue color most days, every day. I think I've seen it be a little bit brown like during storms, but every other day it's pretty blue. I don't know why I got on that tangent, but anyways, so you can see the huge waves crashing into the rocks, and you're super high up above that, kind of like running through the jungle, and there's plenty escape from the task at hand. So like you're working hard, but your mind doesn't have to be 100% focused on that. You can kind of like put that on autopilot, or at least I can just kind of enjoy the surroundings. And so did that exact thing, and eventually you get up to the botanical gardens, and I want to say that that's in Pepicao, and I know I'm saying that wrong, so I'm sorry everybody that lives in Hawaii or is from Hawaii, but I pronounce Hawaiian names not that great. But I believe the botanical gardens is in Pepicao, and you turn around and then it's downhill from there, and you kind of go back down basically the same way you came up, and you get back down to the flat part where the starting line is. And so by that time you're already seeing people that are doing the half marathon, and it gets a little confusing, at least for me, because well, obviously you can see that they have on different colored bibs, so that's not confusing. But if somebody is running way faster than you, right, sometimes it's a little confusing, because you're thinking, wait, what? Like, how did they get all that energy like this far in? Because usually you have you kind of like lose energy as you're doing a marathon. I don't know of anyone, I mean, other than like Usain Bolt or some that caliber of athlete, but like most people get tired. It's a diminishing returns. I don't know if it's diminishing returns, but they don't all of a sudden get stronger. But anyway, my point is, you see people start to pass you, or they're like running right with you, and at first it's a little bit confusing because you're wondering like, oh, I thought I was keeping a pretty good pace. how are these people suddenly coming from behind and going past now? Because usually it doesn't work that way. Usually people that are behind get further and further behind as time goes along, as the course goes along. But so that was a little confusing, and I'm not super out to, like beat people. That's what we used to say when I was a kid. I don't know if people still say that, but like I'm not trying to like win the thing, because like I explained before, I'm not gonna win it. Like there's people that are already done by the time I'm 3/4 of the way in, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But so I'm not necessarily trying to beat people, but there's a thing that happens psychologically when somebody passes you, and it's just, I don't know, I can't explain it. I don't really care. Like my it doesn't hurt my feelings, you know what I mean? Like my conscious mind doesn't really care, but there's a subconscious thing, like a button that's pushed when somebody starts running like close behind me, or they're right beside me, or they pass me. It's a urgency to like not let that happen. Maybe it's just me, but so that kind of threw me off a little bit, but I got over it and continued on. But so you go downhill, you pass the start, well, where you would have started, and there's people that are finishing, shorter events. I want to say they had a 10K. They definitely had a half marathon, and I believe they had a 5K, and they may have had some shorter races for children to do as well. You can look on their website. It's Big Island International Marathon. That's in Hilo, Hawaii. You can see all the details of that, and you can see the results from that if you are interested. But so you go past the start, and then from then on it's kind of flat. You're just running at sea level, basically, down to Richardson Beach Park, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Please don't be mad. But basically all the way down until the road doesn't go anymore. It actually does go more, but like the paved road stops. So up until you get to the end of the paved road, you're running right alongside the ocean, and you definitely are at sea level, because you look out, and I think on that day, I may be getting my days mixed up, but I believe it was that day, there was a high surf advisory, and the waves were humongous. So we were kind of like, it was a nice day and all, but the wind was high, and it picked up really strong at a certain point. But I think it was that day that the waves were pretty huge too. And so you're kind of like right there, right near the ocean, right on the coastal road, all the way down to the end of the paved road. And then once you turn around, you kind of cut back, kind of like a back way through a residential area. It's basically like one street down from the coastal road. And I think they do that, number one, for the distance, and then probably number two, just to keep runners going, like runners and traveling in opposite directions, separated out. So just in case, somebody is running on the wrong side of the road, they're not running into like oncoming runners or that kind of thing. But that's all irrelevant. You turn around, and then you're cutting through these back, kind of like back roads, but it's not that far back. And you're running back to the start line. I mean, I know that's obvious, but it's just the same course back up to the start line, is what I mean. You're basically turning around and going back. So you kind of like turn around and go back twice. Once when you get to the most north point, and then once when you get to the southernmost point. But yeah, I mean, to sum it up, it was beautiful. The weather was pretty perfect. It started to get blustery, and I believe there were rain clouds moving in about the time that I was done, which I want to say was around 10 or 11. I can't remember which one. But for me, the weather was perfect. So there were a couple of things that I noticed, and I've noticed these things before, and I'm guilty of doing these behaviors myself from time to time. There are things I noticed, and I wanted to bring attention to them and offer possible solutions, but in a, I guess, constructive way. It's not criticizing or punching down or coming across as arrogant or know-it-all or whatever, because I don't, and I don't profess to have all the answers or to be the end-all be-all advice for all things running. I'm definitely not that. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things myself, but some things that I saw, and I should mention, I had already recorded this podcast a couple times, but I scrapped it because as I would reflect on what I had recorded so far, it was like I was over critical, like I was just being negative, and I don't want to be negative, and I don't want to discourage people from getting started. It's tough when you're getting started with anything. There's a lot of things that you don't know, and there's a lot of nerves that go along with that, nervous feelings and anxiety, especially when you're an adult, because as an adult, you may have younger people that are looking up to you, and of course other adults look at you as a person that should know what they're have a good idea of what they're doing. So if you don't, which is perfectly normal, sometimes it can be intimidating to have like all eyes on you, and maybe you don't have all the answers, or you don't know exactly what's going on, and that's okay. But as people, I think we often get nervous, and we feel like we have to know everything right away, and we have to be 100% prepared right away. But there's just no way that you can be 100% prepared without having the experience. Experience is the best teacher. I think pain, too, is a good teacher. There's things that you will always remember because you messed them up in the beginning, and you don't want to repeat that. So if you're smart, then you'll adjust your behavior and adjust your plan of action and not repeat those same mistakes. So I'm being really vague, but just know that when I'm saying something that sounds critical, I'm not trying to be, if you're new to the sport of running, or if you're old to the sport of running, or anything in between, I don't think I know everything. I know some things that work for me, but I don't know everything that's going to work for everybody. And so there's also things that I don't know about individual people. So any number of variables could be in play that I don't have any idea about. The person could be sick, the person could be disabled. I don't know. They could be, their dog could have just died. Somebody in their family could have just passed away. So there's all kinds of things that I don't, I'm not omniscient. So if I say something and it sounds like I'm talking to you, just know that I'm not trying to strike a nerve. I'm just trying to be helpful and not trying to be critical or discourage anyone or seem like I'm talking down to anyone. But that said, I did notice some things that kind of maybe could be improved, needs improvement, sort of thing. So the first one was unnecessary distraction. So I noticed people, and I used to do this too, but remember I was saying that you go uphill for the first part of this event, and then the second part you're kind of like downhill, and then you get to sea level and it's basically flat. Well, I understand that people do often fall apart around mile, I think it's like 17 when most people fall apart. I think I saw that number somewhere. I understand that, but I think, if you're gonna come and participate in a marathon, then participate in the marathon. If you're able to run it, then run it, and this could be just a matter of opinion. But my thought is not just like for the appearance of it all, not just so that you can be running the whole time and impressing everybody else, but also because if you think about it, if you're running and you're taking big strides and you're using those muscles, and then you're stopping to walk, right? And then you're using those muscles to walk. And then you're kind of running, but it's not like the full strides. I think like if you're kind of running and it's not the full strides, that's the same as walking. You're using a lot of the same muscles. So maybe, and you're taking more steps. So your foot is slamming into the ground way more times if you're taking short steps, or I guess if you're walking, you're not really slamming your foot into the ground. But anyways, just from a mental aspect, if you're walking, of course, it's going to take a lot longer to get done. And it seems like, at least for me, the longer it takes, the more, the less motivated I am. So like it seems like the effect of looking at your watch or whatever and seeing that you've still got X amount of distance to go and you've gone, Y amount of time, and that amount of time keeps getting bigger, but the miles to go is not really getting a lot smaller. That's kind of a bummer for sure, at least for me. And that kind of hurts the rest of my time while I'm trying to finish the event. So to me, if I'm able to run the whole time and go strong, I'm done quicker, obviously. But I'm not like psychologically, like I'm not mentally worn out by the time I get done. So that was one thing. Like, I'm not saying don't walk, because I know that there's strategies to it. Some people like to walk and then run for a while, and then walk, then run for a while. And like I said before, I know some people can't run 26.2 miles because they have some kind of disability, or something's wrong that day. I get it. Sometimes you can't. But I'm just saying, if you can muster, I guess the strength, or if you can kind of put aside the pain and power through it, you'll come ahead, or I won't say you'll come ahead, you'll be done faster, and you won't have the psychological anguish of like, how long is this going to take? A lot of times when I go fast, and I don't go that fast, but when I'm trying to go fast, we'll put it that way. A lot of times when I'm trying to go fast, I tend to forget about time and the distance that's left and stuff like that anyway. So that's a plus, because one of the worst things you can do is keep looking at your watch, or keep looking at how long you have to go, or how long you've been on the course, because that just seems, it's like watching a pot to see if it's going to boil. It just never seems to be there. It never seems to happen. So so if you can run. If you can't, then you can't. That was one thing that I saw, was a little bit of walking. And I think the second biggest thing was just like stopping altogether. So there were people that would stop because presumably like muscle cramps or something like that, and they would stop, and then they would be doing all of these like stretches and different things. And I've had really bad muscle cramps myself, so I know that they can be painful. And then I also know that if you have them severe enough, you're not going to be able to run anyway, because your inner thighs won't let you, if they're spasming, you're not going to be able to run while that's going on. So to counter that, right? Because if you get to the point where you keep stopping to stretch, to try to remedy these muscle spasms or muscle aches, if you get to that point, then it's kind of like a little late to be trying to remedy it. Now, more power to you if you're trying to power through that and you are doing the stretches and you do keep going. I'm not saying that, you're any less of a person if you stop to do these things. Like if you're walking, or if you stop to stretch or whatever, you're no less of a runner, you're no less of a person doing the marathon than anybody else if you stop to do these things, because stuff can happen to anybody. So but that said, once it gets to that point, it's almost not too late, but it's definitely later than you should have chosen to address the thing. What I would recommend is, if you're a person that does have cramps and muscle aches, spasms even, so there's kind of like two parts of that. My understanding is that there's two parts of that. Number one, the conditioning. What you've done for the preceding, 6 to 12 months before you ran that marathon or ultra marathon or whatever. Have you adequately trained your muscles to run for hours and hours and hours, and trained your joints and your bones, ligaments, tendons? Not really trained, but conditioned, because you're going to rip things up and tear things, and hopefully it will come back stronger. But what have you done to prepare physically for the preceding 6 to 12 months? And so that's one big thing. If you're lacking in that aspect, my suggestion would be, before you attempt another marathon or long distance event, to really push yourself in the preparation. So really get your legs strong and really get your upper body as strong as you can as well. Because if you can balance yourself out with your core and you've got some upper body strength, that takes a little bit of the stress off of your legs. And if you've got a good leg strength, then that's going to obviously help you in a running event. But you want to get the endurance. There's some people that have good cardio endurance. So they've got good cardiac output and great cardiac capacity. That's not an issue, but the muscle strength, it's just, there's not been enough time spent running longer distances and like training the legs to carry on for hours and hours and hours. And when that happens, when you don't train your muscles sufficiently, you're going to get that cramping. You're going to reach the point of muscle failure. And so there's reasons why that happens. Some of it has to do with the glycogen that your muscles use. And so we'll just say fuel, because I don't, obviously I've mentioned I'm not a doctor, so I don't really understand 100% of how everything works, but we'll just say energy. So training your muscles to use energy efficiently so that you're not, just using it all up and then hitting what they call the wall and bonking, which is like when you're just done, like your legs won't go anymore and your body's just not having it. And at that point, you're kind of like at the mercy of your body. You have to stop. So training your muscles to kind of do those longer distances, that's one thing that you can do to forego that misery of having muscle spasms and really intense pain towards the end of the event. The other thing that you can do is increase your electrolytes. So a mistake that I made for a while, I would drink a lot of water, because you always hear that you're supposed to drink, 8 glasses of water a day. And if you're exercising, then you should definitely be drinking more. I think I heard that you lose, I forget if it's liters. I think it's liters. Like you can lose 2 liters an hour, but you can only take in process 1 liter an hour. So I think what I was doing was drinking way too much water. And number one, I was pushing out electrolytes through sweat, especially in Hawaii because of the humidity. There's already moisture in the air. So to get more moisture in the form of sweat out of your body, you actually have to produce more than the normal amount of sweat to cool your body off. So you're getting rid of double, I don't know if it's double, but you're getting rid of more electrolytes through your sweat. And then if you're drinking water, by my summation, if you're drinking only water, then you're not adding all of the salt and other electrolytes that you need back into your body. So you're kind of I don't know if the word is dehydrating, but you're just getting water. You're not getting the electrolyte part, and that's going to mess you up. I think with your blood pressure and just the way that you feel, because you have to have salt for your heart to even beat. You have to have salt for your muscles to move. So if you don't have any, or if you're deficient, then I would assume that could cause some big problems. If it didn't, then there wouldn't be things like Scratch or Gatorade or Powerade, stuff like that. So my recommendation is, especially on humid days, especially if you are like me and you do get cramps from time to time, make sure that during the event you're taking in, I take in just straight Gatorade or straight Scratch, some kind of electrolyte solution. There's water in that anyway, so I don't drink just, pure water during the event. I only take in the electrolyte drinks. And reason being is because I feel like I'm losing more electrolytes than I can even take in the first place. So why make it worse by drinking a bunch of water, just with no electrolyte replacement in it? Why make it worse by doing that? And it's a strategy that's worked well for me. It may or may not work for you, but you may want to give it a try. If water, like straight water, is just not working out for you. And I guess besides the physical conditioning and the electrolyte thing, there's also getting your body used to using the fuel that you're going to use during an event. So if you're going to drink Gatorade during the marathon, or if that's what they're going to have and you don't plan on taking a pack or a water bottle or something with you that's got whatever you're used to, if they're only doing Gatorade at the aid stations, then you've got a choice. Either you need to practice doing your longer runs with Gatorade as a electrolyte replacement slash fuel, or you need to, on race day, bring what you're used to using with you. And so for me, at this point, I'm comfortable if they're going to have Gatorade, and that's what they're going to have at the aid station, like Gatorade and water, then I'm fine with just drinking a little, a cup of Gatorade at every aid station. And I practice, like when I'm doing my regular, daily runs, I use Scratch a lot of the time, but I will on some days just use Gatorade. That way my body's at least a little bit used to processing that particular sports. So train with what you're going to use on race day. Anytime you go from like one thing that you're used to and then you start a totally new thing on the day of an event, that's usually not good. Your stomach doesn't like it, or maybe your body doesn't know how to use it as efficiently as possible. It's kind of like so those things for that particular ailment are what I would suggest. And the point being, like, if all else fails, and if you are able to muster up the sheer will to just hoof it out and run to the finish line, then I would say do that. Because stopping to stretch and stopping, you're just like prolonging the agony, it's gonna hurt whether you're stopped at that point or you're running towards the finish line. Either way, you're kind of in a bad place. But the sooner you get to the finish line, the sooner you're going to get to stop moving. And if you want to sit down, then sit down or do whatever. If you want to drink a big bottle of Gatorade or some other kind of electrolyte replacement, you can do it at that time. Or if you need an IV or whatever, hopefully you don't need that. But if you do, then you can get it at that time. Hopefully not before. Yeah, so just if you can, keep going. If you can't, I understand. But prolonging the agony has never really helped. I just, it still hurt. Even after I stopped to stretch, I still have stopped to rest my legs or walked or whatever. So I guess fourth piece of advice, just keep going. So I noticed people is fine. Do whatever works best for you. I will say, like, my experience has been that carrying a pack on race day, especially if they have aid stations that are handing out what I need, like electrolyte replacement, which is usually all I need for a marathon distance. If they have oranges or other stuff, sometimes they'll have like peanut butter pretzel, just race food, marathon race food. They'll have little things like that. And of course, I'll take them, but for the most part, just a little Gatorade every now and then. And I'll bring a bottle, like I've got a Solomon flask that I'll bring, and I'll ask if they'll fill that up, just so I have some between aid stations, especially towards the end when I'm getting a little bit depleted. Because that's one thing I forgot to mention. You can't preload electrolytes. It doesn't work that way. So, like, you can't drink a bunch of Gatorade before you start an event and then expect that to carry you through the whole thing or through half of the thing or whatever. It doesn't work that way. The best results are to just consistently be drinking electrolytes throughout the event. And then, of course, after you're done, go ahead and drink enough to replace all the have lost during the event. Kind of like recover. So yeah, back to packs. Like I was saying before, if you have trained with some other drink or some other nutrition than what they're going to offer at the event, by all means, bring what you're used to using, what works best for you in your pack. But what I found is I usually move slower with the pack. I usually bring too much liquid, and water weighs a lot. And if you're bringing food, that weighs a lot. I want to say for I think it's every pound. It's either every 5, I think it's every pound adds 5 minutes to your marathon time. And so that could be a pack, that could be extra weight that you're carrying around. But every pound adds a certain amount of minutes. Your total, the less you can weigh, probably the better. That's something that I found to be true for me. So like if I don't carry a pack, I feel less restricted, first of all. I can move, I can breathe in my breathing. And I'm not carrying, don't even know how much a pack would weigh, like full of water and stuff, but I would say at least 5 pounds. And not having to carry an additional 5 pounds over 26.2 miles. It's a good thing. It's a benefit. I stay cooler without a pack on, and I feel freer and lighter without a pack. So, comfortable with your pack, and you always bring a pack for marathons or longer races. I would say do what you're comfortable with, but also maybe try to experiment, do a marathon without it. That's what I did. And it worked out fine. And I found that I was perfectly okay to just drink Gatorade or whatever they have at the aid station. And although I feel like Scratch for me works better, like I feel like it's a better fuel, and I don't know if this phrase means anything, but it burns cleaner. if that makes sense. I can make do. And to me, the benefit of bringing my own water or whatever and bringing a bunch of scratch powder and like mixing that stuff up at some point along the course, it's just the benefit to doing that is not that great. Like if I was doing, of course, during the ultra marathon that I did back in January, I used mostly scratch. There was definitely a noticeable difference for me when the guy that was doing my, his name's Matt, by the way. He's not just the guy. He's a friend. When Matt was mixing up my electrolytes, from time to time, he would give me Gatorade. And I definitely noticed like a difference between scratch and Gatorade. With the Gatorade, I was it wasn't a clean burn. I didn't feel like I got as much electrolyte replenishment. I felt like I got more sugar, and there was a little bit of a crash that happened. Not bad enough to knock me off my pace or anything, but I definitely told him like, hey, don't mix up any more Gatorade. So, but for this marathon, for the Big Island International Marathon last weekend, Gatorade was fine. It was kind of a shot in the dark, but it worked fine for me, and I enjoyed not having to carry my own electrolyte powder, mix anything up or whatever. So sometimes it's the simple things. So definitely try maybe to do longer events without a pack if you can. If you can get by. What else I saw? I think I've gone on a long time. I may just cut off here and then pick up again. I still need to talk about like things to do for motivation. I have some others. I think that's where I left off on the first podcast. So I definitely want to get into that because I've been thinking about it and I thought of some better ones. I kind of ended very weak on the first podcast. So maybe next time I'll talk more about things to do for not just motivation, but for discipline, because sometimes discipline will carry you when motivation has packed its bags a long time ago. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end it here because I do have to work tomorrow, but I will be back hopefully soon with some other things, I guess, that I noticed at the marathon, how you can maybe adjust to improve upon those behaviors, actions, and then cover how you can be more disciplined and or also motivated to get out and do your conditioning, like, because a lot of times it's a small amount, like maybe running the marathon is 10% of running the marathon, but the other 90% is all the time that you spent preparing for that 10% where you're actually running the marathon. So we'll talk more about that on the next podcast, but for now, thanks for listening and happy trails.